Welcome to another episode of the Personal PR Show. And today we're here with Railey. Hello, Railey. How are you?
Hi, it's Railey. But everyone calls me Railey. It's okay. Everyone calls me Railey. Yeah. No, it's okay.
Railey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for making the time to join us today. And where are you tuning in from?
Yes. So I am currently now living in the UK. I'm originally from the States. So when I say that I'm in the UK, people are like, but you have an American accent. So I am originally from the States. I was living in Barcelona for 10 years. I love to travel. So I'm sort of like from all over, I like to say.
Yes, plus your surname is Italian.
It is, yes. Yes, my husband's Italian. It's another hard name to say. Everyone, especially for Americans, they're like Molinario. So yes, it's Railey Molinario, which is, a beautiful name, but a bit tricky.
Yes, exactly. Myself as well in the beginning, I was like, is it because I'm Italian, right? Is it Italian? It's not Italian. Maybe it's Spanish. I don't know. And then you told me that it was Italian. And it made sense, of course. Yes. And Molinario. Perfect. And your husband is actually from the same region as me, right? He's from Lombardia.
Yes.
Yes, cool. This is something that we have in common. That is great. Awesome. By the way, Railey, what is it that you do?
Yes. So I am a love educator and relationship coach. I work with couples to teach them a proven formula for having a successful, happy, and healthy long-term relationships. Unfortunately, we've gotten into this idea that relationships are really complicated. They're full of fighting, they're full of stress, and they can be if we don't understand the foundation on which they can thrive. But when we understand exactly what we have to do, it makes everything more simple. I compare it to if I asked you to speak Chinese, you would say, I can't, it's too difficult. But if I give you a book and a tutor and I send you to China, you will learn to speak Chinese. So it's sort of just giving people the tools and techniques that they need to create that beautiful, beautiful relationship.
Wow, that sounds so intriguing. So if I may ask you, what would you say are the three main items to consider to build a thriving relationship?
That's actually a really perfect question because there are 3 steps. So the first one is to create a common vision. When we're creating a relationship or when we're creating anything, we have to have a vision of what that's going to look like. If I'm going to build a skyscraper in New York, I have to first have a blueprint of exactly how big, how many rooms, how many floors. So that common vision with your partner is exactly the same thing. It's having agreed upon values, expectations, boundaries, and goals in the relationship. Basically, making sure that you and your partner are compatible. The second part is to master what I call relationship intelligence, which is the ability to navigate your relationship successfully. It includes things like being self-aware, having self-management, relationship awareness, relationship management, pairing all of these with communication, trust, respect, compassion, and really understanding exactly what these things mean and what they look like in the relationship. The third step is to cultivate joy. So once we have that foundation, then we cultivate joy by having quality time, amazing intimacy, wonderful sex, all the things that we got into the relationship for in the first place.
Oh my God, this is amazing. By the way, let me get on a meta level for a second. This is such a nice framework. Because, we deal with thought leadership here in personal PR, in this group, and especially on this channel, right? And we love frameworks because this is a way to make things clear to people, of course, and also to protect our breakthrough idea, right? Because you can't protect an idea, you can only protect the expression of it. So this is amazing. So with this framework, you make very clear to people what they need to do. Number one. Number two, you also protect your own breakthrough idea, your own methodology. That is perfect. Great. How long have you been in business for? Because it sounds everything's so polished and stable. And maybe you've been in business for a while.
Well, I am on the newer side of coaching. I was studying finance and hospitality in university before I had my own breakthrough moment. And I decided to leave my country and try something different. And then I taught business because I love business and entrepreneurship and leadership and inspiring people. And then I decided, although I love business so much, there's something else that I want to say and, telling that story in a different way. So then I decided to go into coaching, relationship coaching, which is my passion. And it sort of takes everything that I've learned, everything that I've done, and put it into one place.
Yes. Wow, this is amazing. And by the way, the title, let's read the title of our episode today. The title is How to Share Your Story to Connect with Others. So I imagine that your personal story and maybe your hero's journey was important when, rebranding yourself from business to relationship coaching. Was it? I assume so.
Yes, absolutely. So I had what people may view as a traumatic background. I was abandoned by my father when I was an infant and left to sleep in the snow. I grew up with my mother and my stepfather in this very abusive and neglectful household. It was an extremely, extremely difficult experience for me, all the way up until I was 16, and decided I'm going to leave this behind and try to make it in the world on my own. But when I left home, I was extremely book smart, extremely street smart, but I was missing one element. And that element caused me to have very self-sabotaging behavior, very poor relationships, a very poor relationship with myself, low self-esteem, disorganization in my mind. And that piece was that relationship intelligence, how to have a relationship with myself and how to have relationships with other people. And although I had that book and that street smarts, the relationship intelligence I found was the most important thing. I had a job, a house, a car, all the things, all the material things that we go after. But because I didn't have that relationship with myself or healthy relationships with other people, all of that stuff really didn't matter at the end of the day. I was suffering. I experienced depression, anxiety. I just didn't want to live anymore. And it got to the point where I decided that I was going to take my life. I went to a hotel room. It was what I set out to do. And in that moment, I asked myself one question before I decided to take that step. And that question was, do I want to die or do I want the pain to stop? Because I didn't realize up until that point that those are two different things. And so I said, actually, I just want the pain to stop. I don't know how to do that. But if I could, then I could create a life that I actually wanted to participate in, something that would bring me purpose and joy. And so I set out on this journey to figure out everything that I was so ignorant in. And it was such a beautiful experience because it was like I got to start all over. My childhood was left behind, and I now was making it in the world, teaching myself everything that I hadn't been taught up until that point.
Wow, this is a wonderful story, and we're going to unpack it now because there's so much to it. And but before we do, I will get on a meta level again for a second, and I will say, wow, I really see the hero's journey here. There's three clear phases or steps. So the challenge, the choice, and the outcome, or the choice, the pivotal moment, and then the outcome. And the outcome is what you embody today, of course, because you have all of this relationship intelligence, and it has become your mission because this is something that you want to help people with. Oh, this is a beautiful structure. Okay, I will leave the meta. So well done on the meta level. Now, leaving the meta level. Well, I'm really, really sorry to hear what the challenge was at the beginning, but I'm so happy to hear that you made it through. You made it to the other side. And this, usually in the stories, this pivotal moment is either internal or external. Maybe it's external, like something happens external, and then, the pivot happens, and for you, it was completely internal, intrinsic, right? So this is even stronger.
It was a mixture of both. It was a mixture of both. So what started the situation was I actually got into a really tragic relationship. I was in a relationship with a man who was living a double life. He decided that he was going to have a second partner on the side. He ended up getting her pregnant. They were having this whole experience, and I had no idea, no clue that was happening. And at that point, I had gone through so much with my father abandoning me, my mother abusing me, and then this relationship. And so I would say that although there were outside circumstances, everything comes from internal. In my perspective, everything comes from internal, because with relationship intelligence, one of those pillars is relationship management, self-management, which is regardless of what happens to me, I have 100% control on how I respond to those things. So I can have the power within me to take control of my life, regardless of what's happening on the outside. And I didn't have that skill at that time. So there was a lot of finger pointing, there was a lot of victim mentality. And I would tell everyone my story. Guess what happened to me? Guess what happened to me? I'm like this because of what happened to me. And although sure, I had the right to say those things, I wasn't building anything beautiful for myself. And I just lived as a victim.
Yes, that's true. Oh, wow. And then you stepped from the victimhood, you stepped into probably the more of, let's say, more agency. So you realize, okay, I'm an agent. I can actually do stuff. I have ownership as well. You took ownership and yes, and responsibility for your life. I love this. Yeah, this is like the foundation of personal development, right? Yes. I started my personal development journey 10 years ago, and in the beginning, to me now it looks normal, take ownership and responsibility. But back then it was a revelation. I'm like, wow, I can take ownership. I have responsibility, but at the same time, this empowers me, gives me freedom as well. That was such a revelation, I think. So we recommend to everybody to explore personal development. Amazing, Railey. So now you have had the vulnerability, the courage, the honesty to share your story with us. That is not just a story. I mean, you told us as well that you were suicidal and with, ideation as well. So thank you so much for the trust. And I imagine also that you have told other people this story. This story to other people as well, right? So how did you, what led you to, share your story? Did you share it from the beginning of your business, or maybe if you didn't, when you did start, when you did introduce this story, did you notice a difference in the way that people would react to your offers, for example, or I don't know, in the relationships that you had in general, let's say, also in your network, not only for your potential clients? It's a very complex question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Not to worry. You can also respond to just one thing, and then I will, remind you of the rest.
Absolutely. So when I started my business, I was definitely focusing more on the informational aspects. It was like, I have all this information, I know a lot of things, and I want to share these things with you because I want you to live a better life. My goal is to minimize people's suffering, allow them to minimize their own suffering. And so I said, you can do this. You can create these beautiful relationships if you do 1, 2, 3, if you do X, Y, Z. And I realized that information is extremely important, but insight is a completely different thing. And so anyone can Google anything, right? Even the information that I have, it hasn't come from me, it's come from science. So people can find this information in other places. I just sort of package it in a way that's very digestible. So when you tell your story, in my experience, what that really does, it allows people to know that I've been in their shoes. And I think that there's nothing more powerful than to connect with people and for them to say, oh, she understands me. Not only does she understand sort of what I'm going through, but she understands how I feel. She understands what I am experiencing. So I started off with this app, Peanut. It's an app for women who are either trying to conceive, pregnant, or postpartum. And I started doing 3 hours a week of a live podcast. And sometimes I would have over 100 women listening to me at the same time. And so I'm explaining to them different things about relationship and sex and relationships without fighting and all of these things. And I realized that once I started to talk more about my story, they would comment more, they would put more hearts and things like that, because I think that, first of all, allowed them to feel like they were in a safe space. It was connecting with them. It was allowing myself to be vulnerable with them and show them that I feel what you feel because I've been in your shoes. So the informational aspect, obviously, as a professional, as an expert, I need to know what I'm talking about. I'm not just sharing, a gossip story with my girlfriends. But then that story connects everything. It connects that information with the person, because we're not robots, we're human. We remember stories, we feel stories, we connect with stories. So it's really changed the whole aspect of how my business is shaped.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. It's so good to hear. And going a step back, right before you started sharing your story, were you nervous about what you were about to do? Did you have any second thoughts? And maybe you wanted to, on some days, just about launching the story, so to say, you wanted to reconsider and say, no, I'm actually not going to share it, or I'm not going to share this version of the story, maybe not the suicidal part. Did you, I don't know, did you have any resistance to this?
To the story, no. So one of the things that I've been able to do by mastering relationship intelligence is I've been able to take my story and keep it in my mind just as that. The way that I tell my story is sort of like telling you a movie that I've seen. People often see how unemotional I am, talking about that my father left me in the snow and my mom used to beat me and all of these things. And they're like, wow, she's saying it so relaxed. And that's because I've done work for so many years to be able to have this compartmentalized, that it no longer allows me to suffer. It no longer burdens me. It no longer hurts me, because it's just an experience that I had. They're simply memories. My parents aren't here doing those things. I'm not going through those experiences. I'm living, a thriving life. So I'm allowed to have the beautiful life that I've created, as well as those memories, and those are separate things. So the way that I tell my story, for me, it's like telling you about a movie that I've seen. So emotionally, I don't have any difficulty expressing all of those things. The second thing is, when I was going through my depression and my anxiety, I felt like I was alone. And that was one of the most difficult things that I had to deal with. I didn't feel that anyone was supporting me. I didn't feel that anyone cared. And feeling alone is the worst feeling in the world, because you feel that no one can show that compassion or that empathy or that connectiveness. And as humans, we need to feel connected. This is why relationships are so important. So for me to tell my story, it's also easy for me because I know that someone needs to hear it. I know that, if I am doing a live podcast and there's 100 people, if I even touch one person who says, wow, she's speaking to me, then it's worth it.
Yes, definitely. Oh my God, thank you for sharing these two nuances, these two aspects. And this, the story we've just discussed over the past few minutes, I would say is your signature story, right? Would you say it as well? Okay, your signature story, your personal branding story. Now, because the topic of our conversation today is, stories in general, my next question is, do you have any, let's say, sub stories that you bring into, into your content every now and then?
There are. So I do talk about different aspects that have happened and how they show up in my life today and the lessons that they've taught me. For example, growing up as a young child, as a toddler, up until I would say I was 12, I really suffered from not understanding why my father abandoned me. As a little girl, I would look at other little girls and say, hold on, but they have daddies, why don't I? And so it was a very confusing time for me. Go to my teenage years, that's when the resentment came. That's when the hate came, because I said, how dare you? I was sort of taking offense as though it was personal to me. And so fast forward, now I'm 34 years old, I can look at that same situation and say, I have no resentment and I have no anger, because all I have is compassion. My father is actually the one that taught me deeply how to be compassionate. When people don't have certain attributes like empathy, that is how they show up in the world, because they don't have those characteristics that I'm so blessed to have. If I have a child, I could never abandon them. Why? Because I have so much compassion and empathy. Someone who does do that doesn't have those characteristics. So I can't fault someone for not having those things. And so that's why I can show today compassion to anyone. I can show compassion to pedophiles, serial killers, anything, anyone out there. And the strongest aspect of compassion is that compassion doesn't mean that you agree with any of these things. I obviously would never do what my father did. I do not believe people should be pedophiles and serial killers, but I can understand them. I can understand how some people lack empathy and connection. I understand how people can be sociopaths and psychopaths. So that understanding brings an awareness. When you are aware and you understand, again, you don't have to agree, but when you understand, it allows you to show up in the world more connected. It allows you to show up in the world not being so negatively affected by other people's issues, because my father's lack of empathy, for example, has nothing to do with me. Yeah. I used to think that it was a reflection of me. It's not me, it's him, And so it just, those little moments where I experienced one thing and thought that it looked one way, and now it shows up in a completely different way because I have this relationship intelligence.
Oh my God, this is amazing. And you have, storytelling intelligence as well, Riley. Because I love how you told the story and then you transitioned so smoothly and seamlessly. You transitioned into the teaching, into the learning that you got from this story, right? And it's not just for you, so you didn't only make it relevant for yourself, but for us all, right? Because then you taught in universal terms. This is amazing. Well done. Wow, this conversation is so cool. And yes, so stories help us also build let's say trust and credibility as well, but mainly trust, I would say, personal stories, in terms of through embodiment as well, right? Because we embody what we teach, right? So for example, you teach relationship intelligence, and through your story we can see how you learned relationship intelligence and how you, let's say, you applied it as well. So for example, because you deal with relationships, do you ever tell stories about the embodiment of relationship intelligence between you and your husband? So for example, examples from your, I don't know, for example, oh yeah, it's important to go on a weekly date. This is stuff that we hear all the time, right? Okay, so and then on your Instagram, for example, you show the embodiment of this principle, which is you going on a date with your husband once a week or every now and then. Is this something that you do?
Yes. So I do pull him in for example purposes. And I do let people know that I am in this power couple relationship, meaning that we are deeply in love and successfully able to navigate our relationship. I also tell stories about, sort of in the moment things that happen to us. So a few months ago, his niece had a brain tumor and we found out very last minute, and we had to stop work, pack our things, find a hotel, go to fly to Bratislava, which is not where we live, to stay there for 4 days before she had surgery, during and after. And I explained to people how in this moment, there was nothing we could do, and it wasn't our fault. And power couples don't necessarily have fewer problems than anyone else. We went through the pandemic like everyone else. We have, family issues like everyone else. But the difference between a power couple and a couple that doesn't have that relationship intelligence is how you respond to those things that happen, how you problem solve. So we were able to show each other compassion. We were very organized in, okay, you book the hotel, I'll book the plane tickets. We were extremely self-aware, each of us, of how we felt. We were able to practice that relationship awareness, that relationship management. How can we go through this together? How can we make sure that each other is okay with work, emotionally, because of what's happening? Ask each other, are we okay? What do we need? And so really being able to show those real life examples that my husband and I go through, I think it also helps people to put it into real terms.
Exactly. I love this because it's basically an example from your current life or your present life, not an example of 5 years ago when you discover relationship intelligence and you first started, let's say, applying it, right? So that makes it all the more incredible, I would say, and gives all of this continuous trust. I love this. And also, I have to say that we are joined by a few people, and including Martina, who's my COO. She's in Boston. She's already up because this week it's only 5 hours of difference. It could be that Martina or anybody else who's following on us wants to join us on Zoom, Riley. So that's why I just wanted to let you know that I copy pasted the link to our Zoom room into our Facebook, and I'm going to right now join us on Zoom. So maybe you will get live questions either on Facebook. Right?
I love answering questions.
Yeah, or maybe people will even join us on Zoom. That is awesome. Perfect. And okay, so I love, we have explored different aspects of storytelling to build your brand. And now maybe for a few seconds, few minutes, maybe we could leave the topic of storytelling for personal branding on the side, and we can talk about relationship intelligence, because this is something that we have mentioned a few times over the past few minutes. And I'm sure the audience is like, you guys are like, oh my God, but tell us what this relationship intelligence is. What is the anatomy of relationship intelligence? So how do we answer to this question, Riley?
Yes. Okay. So relationship intelligence is how we navigate our relationships. So when you have relationship intelligence, it means that you navigate your relationship successfully. You have happy and healthy relationships. So there are 4 pillars to relationship intelligence. There's self-awareness, which means I have an ability to understand my emotions, my vibe, my feelings in any given moment. It's to say to myself, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, I'm frustrated, I'm whatever it is that you feel. And self-management is taking it one step further to say to yourself, how am I going to respond to these emotions in a way that's going to benefit me? So just because I'm overwhelmed doesn't mean I have to respond in any kind of way. I can smoke a cigarette, I can meditate, I can go for a run, I can yell at my spouse, I can throw something, I can take a nap. There are a million ways that I can respond to my frustration, my anger, or any emotion that I have. The management side is, how am I going to choose to respond in a way that's going to benefit me? Those 2 pillars have to do with self. I'm the only one who can be 100% aware of my emotions, and I'm the only one who can respond to my emotions. So that's my responsibility. Then when it comes to relationships, you have relationship awareness, which is the awareness of the energy, the vibe, the sort of behavior of your partner and of the relationship itself. So in every relationship, there are 3 entities. There's partner 1, partner 2, and the couple. So the relationship awareness is being aware of your partner and being aware of the couple. Now, you can't be a mind reader, and we shouldn't try to. So it's not to say I know exactly what my partner's thinking, I know exactly what my partner's feeling, but you can kind of tell when you've been with someone, oh, he's had a long day, he looks a bit stressed. And then the relationship management is, how am I going to respond to that energy, that vibe, in a way that's going to benefit my relationship? So for example, if you see that your partner comes home and they're slouched and they're like, oh, and they look tired, how are you going to respond to that? You can tell them, pucker up and give me a kiss. You can tell them, go take a nap. You can cook them something. You can bake them a cake. You can ask them, why are you so grumpy? There's many different ways that you can respond. Which one are you going to choose that is going to allow you to connect with your partner, show compassion, show empathy, and strengthen the bond? The same thing for the relationship. If you see, okay, we haven't kissed in 3 weeks, we haven't had sex in 6 months, we've been fighting every day. If you see the energy or the vibe in the relationship, how are you going to respond to that? So what a lot of people tend to do is, oh, we've been fighting a lot, or we haven't had sex, or, we've been bickering at each other. How am I going to respond? I'm going to shout, I'm going to scream, I'm going to tell my partner they're a terrible person. And that is actually not going to benefit you. So which action can you take to actually benefit you? So that's sort of the 4 pillars that we have, but within those are things like compassion, interdependence, effective communication, understanding, all of these things that we have to really understand exactly what they mean and what do they look like.
Yes. Oh my God, this is amazing. What a lovely framework. Another one. So the first framework that you dropped at the beginning of this call had 3 items, and this one here has 4 components. Which one is your main framework? Your signature framework, let's say.
Yeah, hard question. Yeah, I would say if you have to pick, sorry, there's a bit of a glare here. Hold on one second.
Oh, not to worry. Not to worry. We are live. So the sun comes in, a cat comes in as well. Like here, for example, my cat has been licking my arm all the time. And yes, so this happen when we go live.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to relationship intelligence, they're all important, right? All of them are equally important. But the first one to practice is that self-awareness, because that's where you start. That's a starting point. I can't be aware of anything else if I'm not first aware of myself.
That's true. And how do we develop self-awareness? Do you have any particular technique or methodology to do so?
Yeah, so self-awareness is really being present in the present moment. So we can practice this by practicing mindfulness. From the time we get up to the time we go to bed, our mind is on autopilot. We're thinking about what happened yesterday. We're thinking about the fears that we have for tomorrow, all of the things that we have to do, the TikTok videos that we're playing over and over again in our mind. And so we really have to, oh, the glare is very bad. We really have to understand how to be present and how to show up, just understanding exactly what is happening right now. Of course, we have to think about things and plan things and reflect on things, but we should find the right moments to do that. It shouldn't be constantly in our minds that these things about yesterday and these things about tomorrow. So if we want to reflect, we should take 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, however much time we want to reflect, but not while we're doing the dishes and trying to work and trying to do all of these things, because those just come as distractions and it's not an effective way to do it anyway, if it's sort of random. So I would say my favorite way to practice mindfulness is to practice meditation. Every morning I meditate for just 15 minutes, but it completely changes how I show up in the world.
Wow.
When I wake up, I meditate and I think about I don't think about things, but my mind is on the autopilot, isn't it? So I don't try to think, but I think about all of these things. And so my job as the person who's in control of my mind is simply to be aware of my thoughts. It's not to try to control them or try to stop them, but simply just be aware of them. So once you are in the driver's seat and you say, okay, my mind is doing this, it's all over the place, but actually I'm aware that it's all over the place. I'm aware that I'm thinking about yesterday and tomorrow and all of those things. Then you start to have more control. And really, when you have more control of your mind, you have control of your thoughts, and then you have control of your actions, that self-management, and then you have control of your life. So it really, really starts in the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, this is amazing. And so I imagine that this is also a practice that you recommend to your clients, right? Do you have, by the way, do you have just one-on-one, no, not one-on-one clients. Do you have only individual clients, or do you also work with couples? And if you work with couples, do you tell them, you guys, you both should meditate 15 minutes a day?
So I usually work with couples or in group settings. So when I work with couples, I hint at the idea of meditation. And the reason that I hinted it and I don't make them do it is because I think meditation has to come from an organic place. If you tell someone you have to meditate, if they're sitting there thinking, I hate this, this is stupid, why am I going to do this? I don't want to do this anymore. Then it's not going to work, is it? So I sort of just hint at the idea of the benefits that it's brought in me, and the fact that I do it only for 15 minutes as soon as I wake up in the morning. And by getting that control and putting myself in the driver's seat, it then puts me in the driver's seat for the rest of my day. So I use persuasion, which is a great tactic to have in relationships. So instead of sort of assigning it, I hint at the benefits that they would get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is awesome. Yes, it's also a technique in messaging for business, right? Yes, so it's a general principle that works for a lot of people. But when it comes to meditation, who meditates more, your female clients or your male clients? When you make the recommendation, then and you show the benefits, then who resonates most with meditation?
I would probably say my female clients, although my male clients are typically open to it. They are typically open to it. And I think because men and women have been conditioned differently, and women have been conditioned over the years to be more in tune with our emotions, and men haven't. And so for me, it's important that everyone practice that mindfulness and that self-awareness. But I think men have to dig in general, have to dig a little bit deeper to get there, because they've sort of been conditioned to ignore their feelings, ignore their thoughts, stop crying, don't be a girl, don't be emotional. So they've sort of blocked off that ability to connect with themselves. So I think both are important, but it is more of an issue for men to really be able to connect in general.
In general, that's awesome. And when it comes to your story, you telling your story, we talked about your signature story. Did you get more comments from men or women?
So most of my audience is consisted of women, because I think it's more about relationships and love and self-help and all of these things. My clients usually tend to first be the woman, and then they will sort of drag their partner with them. Yeah. So usually when I'm doing a consultation, I'm actually talking to the man most of the time, because the woman has found me on some platform, she's listened to me, she's connected with me, and so now I have to sort of level the playing field by explaining who I am and what I do and everything to the man.
And let's say that a woman tries to drag her partner into working with you, but the partner is not open to it. Can the woman, let's say, work with you individually in this case?
Absolutely. So when I have a consultation, I actually tell them that this is just as much about me getting to know you as you getting to know me. And we decide together if we're a good fit to work together. The thing that I say is that my work isn't going to perform magic. Okay. So there is a formula for me to figure out exactly if this is going to work, because it's not going to work for everyone. And so the way that it's going to work is if there's a couple that's deeply in love and they have the willingness to do the work. And I've met with quite a few couples where one partner does want to do the work and the other partner doesn't want to do the work. And in that case, I say, I'm not the right fit for you, because I can't make you love each other and I can't make you do the work. I can teach you everything else, but those two things I can't give you. So if she drags him and he doesn't want to participate, which has happened a few times, I will say, this isn't right for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, but I didn't answer your question. So yes, so sometimes if one of the partners still wants to work on themselves in the relationship, I do have a program just for one person. It's an empowerment program. And this program can be used for people who are struggling in their relationship, people who want to leave their relationship, or people who have just gotten out of their relationship and they need to sort of get themselves back to a good place. And even I've had clients who want to take this program before getting into a relationship, which is what I suggest to everyone to do. I say, see me before you get in the relationship, so we don't have to see each other once you're in it.
This is so cool. And this leads me to the next question, which is maybe somebody, takes your program before the relationship and maybe they can fix something that is going on in them, maybe a pattern that has been repeating itself. And then they get into the relationship and it's going great, but then they still want to work with you because they want to get to the next level. So to say, they want to elevate, they want to optimize the relationship. Is this something that you know, you have a lot of clients that want to do also, like not to fix the relationship, they come to you not to fix the relationship, but actually to optimize, to take to the next level.
Honestly, I wish I could prescribe this to everyone. If everyone came to me before, the world would be a more peaceful place. Because what this is coaching, but it's also the educational part. And this is why I stress that I'm a love educator, because this is an education that we need. People don't ask to be in toxic relationships. People don't ask to suffer. People don't ask to be, you know, in this dysfunctional union, this dysfunctional partnership. But most of us find ourselves there because we don't know what it is that we're doing. And a lot of times we watch TV shows, we listen to the music, we ask our friends, we ask our parents for advice. And it's like, no, don't do that because, you know, you're following this dysfunction. And that's why everyone, it's like the blind leading the blind. It's just not working. So when we have this education that comes before getting into the relationship, it will teach you, and I have had a few clients do this and I'm so proud of them, but it will give them the education before starting the relationship so that when they go in, they know exactly how to build that communication, how to build that trust, how to start with a common vision, all of these things that, you know, we really have to do at the beginning. It's not to say that if we do it later, it's too late, but it's just going to save you a lot of resentment, a lot of fighting, a lot of frustration. But I would say that even if someone gets the education before, it's also good to have, you know, this course when you're in the relationship, because it's one thing for one person to know information, but when you're in a relationship, it's about two people working together. So I have people, for example, they say, I'm a great communicator. I'm wonderful at communicating, but my partner isn't. And I say to them, you may be a good speaker and you may be a good listener, but the question is, do you have effective communication in the relationship? It's either yes or no, and you're both responsible. So that element of working together is something that a lot of us need to learn how to do.
Absolutely. Wow, this is so fascinating. And that leads me to my next question, which I have to say, I forgot. No, there was something. Yes, no, there was an observation that I wanted to make, which is going back to the beginning of the last answer that you gave us. You said the world would be a better place. No, if everybody came to me, you know, took this course, for example, the world would be a better place. Actually, this was a soundbite. Is it something that you drop as a soundbite in the interviews that you have when you're featured on third-party channels? Because this is amazing.
No, actually, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever said that before. And honestly, it doesn't come from a sort of arrogant place of like, everyone needs to take my course, but everyone needs the education, whether you come to me or you go to someone else who has this information. It really is essential because, again, people are suffering and they don't have to. You know, when I talk about creating relationships without fighting and how the future of relationships are completely without fighting, people really think they've been conditioned to believe that a normal relationship is with fighting, that fighting is good, that if you don't fight, it means you're not in love. And to be honest with you, fighting means that you have negativity. It means that you have frustration. It means that you struggle. None of those things are going to benefit you. Now, the working together, the communicating, the problem solving, the compromise, the negotiating, those are good, but we can do that completely without the fighting. So it's really important for people to get this information, again, from me or from someone else, but really, really have this education.
Wow, absolutely. Wow, sounds so cool. But because you can help people before they even get into a relationship as well, is dating anything that you help people with also?
I don't specifically work with people who are dating, although I have, again, because they're usually looking for a dating coach, which is teaching them how to get a date, sort of what to put on your profile, how to, text people and what to say and things like that. So that's typically what they're looking for. They're not necessarily looking for, how do I build the foundation for a thriving relationship? So they don't tend to come to me at that point. But again, I wish they did, because yes, it's important to have a beautiful profile on your dating page, and it's great to, know what to say. But once you get into that relationship, it is so important to understand exactly what to do from the very, very first moment to build what could last 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Absolutely. Totally. So guys, if you want to date, you can hire a dating coach, but at the same time, take Railey's course. Yes, you can combine the two, right? Yes. Awesome. So did you notice, Railey, that somebody joined us? I think Nikhil joined us for a few seconds, and he or she is gone, right? Yes. So maybe he or she, probably she, right? Do you know her? No, you don't.
I don't think so, but I am very bad with names, so could be.
I don't know her. Maybe I've seen the name, but she's never been on the personal PR show. She's never been in one of our calls. So I'll just assume that she's a she. It's a she, right? Okay, so she then left, and probably she's having technical problems. But we are approaching the end of our conversation today. We still have a few minutes, and I would like to ask you a question that is not a proper question, but it's something that gives us the opportunity to introduce other topics. And it's a question that I love asking at the end of every interview. So Railey, what is a question that I haven't asked you, but I should have asked you?
Ooh. Okay, so I would say, because I love to help people, as a coach does, and I like to have people have these really quick takeaway moments, because the idea of relationship intelligence is complex. So if I could give people just one thing to take away today, it would be such a pleasure for me. So if you could ask me, what's one thing that people can learn from you today? That would be a great question.
Absolutely. I do that with great pleasure. But first, I have to tell you that Nikhil said that he's a he. Okay, great. Hi, Nikhil. Good to know. Number two, I have another comment, which is it's actually a question. Did you just say relationship technology?
Me?
Yeah.
No, relationship intelligence.
Intelligence, right? Well, I heard for a second relationship technology, and I was actually fascinated by that, because it's like an oxymoron. Technology is very brainy, and the relationship is very, usually is related to emotions. And I love oxymorons, especially, to find, let's say, to coin new terms and to codify our intellectual property. So I was like, oh yeah, relationship technology, that's so cool. But of course, relationship intelligence is much more intuitive, and but maybe one day you want to write a blog about relationship technology? I don't know. Anyway, but Railey, what is a takeaway that you would like to share with our audience, and something that can really make a difference immediately because it's super actionable?
Yes. So when it comes to all of these different elements, compassion, trust, vulnerability, interdependence, is really about understanding exactly what that means and exactly what that looks like, and how to implement those different things in your relationship. So I will talk just for a moment about understanding, because this is a big one. People constantly say, I don't understand what my partner did. I don't understand why they would do that. Or they don't understand me. I'm trying to tell them and they're not understanding me. So what does this mean? How can we properly understand one another in relationships? So the word understand, it simply means to absorb information. So if I'm the listener in a conversation, I'm actively listening. It means that I'm simply focusing on what you're saying and I'm absorbing the information. So to understand simply means to be able to absorb that information. It doesn't mean that I agree with you. It doesn't mean that I disagree with you. It just means that I comprehend what it is that you're saying. So I can understand my husband and completely disagree with him. Those two things can happen at the same time. So what does it mean to understand? I absorb that information and I accept it as truth. This is a hard one for people because again, if I accept it as truth, it makes it real. It makes it, it means that I'm agreeing with you, but it doesn't. So if my husband is telling me something, I can disagree with him, but I can understand him. I can understand what it is that he's saying, and I accept it as truth, meaning that it's his truth. Now, I can have my own truth. I have my own perspective. I have my own belief. I have my own truth, but it's his truth. And why it's so important for us to understand one another is because if we have any chance at finding solutions for our problems in our relationships, the first step is to understand. It's where we beginning. Then once we understand, this is your perspective, this is my perspective, we understand each other, then we can use brainstorming, compromise, and negotiation to find solutions to our problems that work for both people.
That is great. And when we understand, we understand and internalize this distinction between understanding and agreeing. And maybe we apply it in a certain situation. So we have a situation with our partner and we think to ourselves, okay, I understand, but I don't agree, and I agree, but I don't understand. Do you recommend to also tell our partners what we
Absolutely.
are?
Yes. So when we're having a conversation, it's really important because what you say may not be what I receive. And this is how we have effective communication. So we have to periodically, if we're not sure, we should ask our partner, is that what you meant? Because we want to clarify. We always have these conversations where that's not what I meant. That's not what I said, right? So to make sure that this doesn't happen, you can ask your partner, is this what you're saying? Am I understanding correctly? Is this what you mean? Because if not, give them a chance to describe it again. When we are understanding, it's just about saying, this is where we're starting from. And we can disagree. We can have two different perspectives, and that's perfectly okay, because when we master the art of compromise and negotiation, which is another topic, we can find solutions to our problem every single time with a solution that works for both of us, which is the only way we can solve problems in our relationship. It's always a win-win situation.
That is awesome. Wow. You've given us so much gold. Now we really have to, this is really a nugget that we could, put into practice immediately. It's really actionable. That's great. Yes. And it's super short as well, because it's just you really understanding the difference between understanding and agreeing, of course. And then, yes. Wow. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, Railey. I'm super grateful for all the wisdom that you shared, and also for sharing your story at the very beginning of our chat, because probably you're used to telling your story now, but I think when we tell such, let's say, tough stories, there's always a little bit of vulnerability involved, right? Even if you're telling it for the 100th time. So thank you so much for doing this with us today.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, you are so amazing. And I absolutely love the work that you do. And I watch most, not all, I don't have too much time, but I do watch most of the lives that you have and the people that you bring on, and I remember a lot of their stories as well. And so I have to say, I really, really appreciate the work that you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's my passion, and luckily it's my expertise as well, because I've been doing this for 15 years. But it's so much more fun to tell the story of a person than the story of a company. Mm-hmm. That's why I want to work with coaches, consultants, and so on. And that's why I founded Personal PR. I still love PR, but it's much more fun to promote people, and people with ideas, of course, and messages, than to promote just companies that are quite impersonal. Yeah, so thank you so much for this compliment, and promise us something. Today we talked about stories, but I'm sure that we can talk about so many different things, because you are an entrepreneur yourself, right? So you deal with business and messaging and personal branding and all this stuff. Today, how do you say, every day anyway. So I'm sure that we can find different angles. So will you come back to the show with a different angle?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And then we can still talk about relationships. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Riley. It was a pleasure to have you with us today. And thank you guys for watching us. And we'll see you, I don't know when, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow with another episode of the Personal PR Show.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, guys.